All right, boom, let's lock in. Today, Unit 3, we're going to be looking at professional development in the sports industry. This unit is internally assessed, and this is basically the bridge between just being able to say I study sport and actually going, I can actually get hired in sport. So, by the end of this unit, you want to be able to pick a career in sport and justify why it fits you, prove that you understand the job market and what employers actually want, complete a skills audit plus SWOT. We're going to look at this in this video. Build a career development action plan. We're going to also look at that, and produce a portfolio. And lastly, you want to be able to do an interview effectively and recruitment activities, and also have a reflection at the end. So to cover all of this, we're going to be looking at four main things. We're going to look at careers and job opportunities in the sports industry. We're going to look at skills audit, action plan, portfolio. We're going to look at recruitment activities, so applications, interviews, pathway skills, and we're going to look at reflection. So buckle up, because this unit is not just about sounding motivated. It's about being evidence-based. So evidence. You need to show that you've researched properly. You need to show that you've linked your research to a chosen career. You need to show that you've used your skills audit to build a realistic plan. You need to show that you understand recruitment documents and processes. You need to show that you can evaluate your performance and improve your plan. So as we're going through this unit, always think, what evidence would I need to include in my assignment to prove this? Let's start with talking about the scope and provision of the sport industry. So first of all, what do we mean by scope and provision? So scope is just how big the industry is, what it includes and where it exists. So it could be locally, it could be nationally. Provision is what sport or physical activity opportunities are available, who provides them, and why that affects jobs. For this example, you want to be able to understand what affects the jobs in the real world. So you want to understand things like industry data to do with participation, number of jobs, economic significance. You want to understand the geographical context, so the location, environment, infrastructure, population, socio-economic factors like wealth, employment levels, local culture, trends in the industry. And you also want to look at the seasonality, so how things change as seasons change. So things like summer camps, competition seasons, training camps, and seasonal facilities. So you're going to ask yourself questions like, is it a high population area with loads of clubs? Are there facilities nearby? Is the sport popular locally or nationally? Is there council funding or private investment? Is it seasonal? These are the type of questions that you're going to ask when you're writing about a career like a sports coach. And that's what's going to really give you those distinction level high marks. All right, now let's map the industry. So some key pathways you need to know are things like coaching, sports science. So this includes nutrition, psychology, therapy, injury management, exercise and fitness. We also have sport development. So things like development officers, NGB officers, sports administrators. We have leisure management, facility management, groundskeeping, activity coordinator. For example, I did a work experience at a leisure center some years ago, and I was at the front desk, and another part of my job was actually going around making sure the football pitches were in good condition. If the net on a certain goal post had broken, then I had to fix the net or figure out a way to fix the net, making sure the AstroTurf was in good shape. So that all goes into leisure management. We also have education and sports journalism. You need to also know where the jobs sit. So the sectors where the jobs sit. And this could be the private sector. This includes things like councils, schools, public leisure centers, NHS-related activity schemes. We have the private sector. This includes gyms, clubs, academies, sports performance companies, and media companies. We also have voluntary or third sector. So this could include things like charities, community clubs, foundations. And lastly, we have public or private partnerships. So this can be mixed funding and delivery models. Now, this is very straightforward. Types of employment. We obviously have full-time. This is your standard sort of 9 to 5 jobs where you're contracted and you have a certain amount of hours that you do as your main job. You have part-time, which has fewer hours than full-time, fixed-term contracts where your job has an end date, self-employed, you work for yourself, 0-hour contracts, no guaranteed hours. So the work is basically as and when. And apprenticeships. This is where you have paid work plus a training route into a certain role. So apprenticeships are becoming so much more popular over the past few years. I think there's even medicine apprenticeships now, which never used to be a thing. But yeah, apprenticeships are a big one. Some sources of information on careers in sports that you can reference are things like job advertisements, professional bodies and career frameworks, national governing bodies, college, university, and their progression routes, and lastly, employment websites and role profiles. So to start sounding like a professional, you want to be talking about training routes, legislation, and industry standards. So some example of training routes and progressions in the industry are through ways like coaching. So NGB awards, specialist routes, which could be in disability sports, working with children, and this also includes safeguarding requirements. We can also go through sports science. So there's so many different specialist areas in sports science like nutrition, sports psychology. We also have sports development. This includes things like development officer routes, NGB pathways, administration roles, and talent pathway roles. We have leisure management, which includes things like lifeguarding, facilities maintenance, health and safety, customer service, marketing, finance, management roles. And lastly, we have education. Higher education could be universities, you could be going to college, sixth form, PhD, masters, you name it. So in this course, you're expected to be able to handle job description and the actual spec. So job description, straightforwardly, is just what the job involves. So duties, responsibilities, reporting lines. The spec is what the employer wants. So what the employer wants from the candidates, it could be skills, qualifications, experience, qualities. So in the spec, you often see 2 types of criteria. There's the essential criteria, which is what you must have, and the desirable criteria, which is what is nice to have. Now, moving on to industry standards. We're going to look at safeguarding, DBS, codes of practice. So DBS stands for disclosure and barring service. This is just background checks that are often required for roles working with children or vulnerable people. This can even go further, and enhanced checks can be conducted, which can include extra relevant police information and sometimes barred list checks, depending on the role that you're going for. Safeguarding is just a practical duty of care. So this is all about how you create a safe environment, how you recognize concerns, respond and escalate them correctly. Some key legislation that you should mention in a sports context are the Equality Act and data protection. So you don't need to become a lawyer, you don't need to go too much into detail, but just having awareness of the Equality Act, which is an act that protects people from discrimination in the workplace and recruitment. It matters in interviews, in selection processes, and in how you run sessions. And data protection, this is just how you handle data in a lawful way. Some professional bodies that you can reference to give you more credibility are the CIMSPA, which is a professional body for the UK sports and physical activity sector. We have REPs, which stands for Register of Exercise Professionals. This is a professional register concept in fitness context. We have UK Coaching, which is a safeguarding and coach development support. We have UK Coaching, which provides safeguarding and coach development support. And we have AALA, which stands for Adventure Activities Licensing Authority. And this is relevant to any outdoor or any adventure provision. So whenever you're referencing this, don't just name it. Try to briefly explain what they do and why employers care. CPD simply stands for Continuing Professional Development. So it's how you stay competent and how you progress even after you've got a qualification. And sources of CPD include memberships to professional bodies, required updates like safeguarding, first aid that you have to do over and over again, career progression training, such as getting higher qualifications, engaging in management training, and other higher education pathways, like a degree. And lastly, we have cross-sector opportunities. Now let's look at skills audit and how this can inform a career development action plan. So a skills audit is simply a structured check of what you currently have versus what the career needs. So what should be included in a skills audit? Your interests, your accomplishments, your qualities, basic skills like literacy skills, IT skills, you name it. Experience that shows certain qualities like sports, leadership, work, travel, qualifications, whether it's educational qualifications or sector-specific qualifications. Employability skills, good ones like teamwork, communication, problem solving, and so on and so forth. Technical skills like coaching, instructing, test protocols, so on and so forth. And SWOT analysis. So SWOT analysis, if we break that down, it stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So it helps to be able to understand where you're at and where you need to get to. And when you're using a SWOT analysis, you want to use it properly. You want to have a strong SWOT, not a weak SWOT. Don't just say, oh, strength, I'm good at communication. That's not going to fly. You want it to be more comprehensive than that, a lot more robust than that. So you want to say something like strength, communication. I coach under 16s weekly and I adapt instructions for mixed ability groups. The feedback I get from this shows me that the sessions are clear and very engaging. And always attach evidence, whether it's screenshots, statements from your clients, certificates, logs, feedback forms, photos, as long as it's appropriate, session plans, and so on and so forth, whatever evidence you can find. What is a career development plan? A career development plan is simply your roadmap from where you're at now to your target role. So you're going to be thinking about timescales, whether the role is immediate or it's in 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. You're going to be thinking about training, education, experience. You're going to be thinking about support that's available and education choices. You're going to be thinking about milestones. You're going to be thinking about development activities to get to that target. So things like workshops, training, job shadowing, work experience, self-reflection. And just between me and you, this is a secret. This is a secret structure that always works for your career development action plan. So for each goal, you want to write the target. This is what you're going to achieve. You want to write why, linking it to the job specification. And then you want to outline how. Then you want to give a deadline. You want to submit evidence. And you want to review. So your review is going to how you measure progress. portfolio or your record of achievement is your evidence vault. So the exam board suggests that you include things like educational certificates, sport-specific awards, sporting achievements, testimonials, newspaper cuttings even. That's less relevant because how many of you actually read a newspaper? Work experience, volunteering, any other relevant evidence, and CVs. Because your portfolio is not just a nice thing to have, it's a tangible record that supports your skills audit and it proves your development. Let's look at recruitment activity. So for job applications, the documents you need for a selected role are job adverts, job analysis, job description, the job specification, application form, personal CV, letter of application. But what is a job analysis? A job analysis is simply breaking down the role to understand the tasks, the responsibilities, the working conditions, and the skills needed so that you can then write an accurate job description and person specification. And when you're looking at your CV plus your letter of application or cover letter, you want to think about what makes them sports industry targeted. And these are things like using language from the advert without copying, of course. Things like showing the evidence impact. So using numbers, outcomes, feedback. Showing safeguarding awareness where relevant. And making it clean, professional, and role specific. It's already hard enough to get the job, but getting to the interview stage is nerve-wracking. So let's look at some skills that really make the interview a lot more successful. So things like having good body language and actually listening, taking a professional approach, using formal language or appropriate language for the situation, dressing well, getting a haircut, whatever it is you need to do to present yourself, answering the interview questions properly, having good presentation skills, having good technical skills relevant to the pathway. So it could be coaching skills, instructing skills, skills to do with handling equipment, and skills that show that you can follow protocol. And also feedback forms and observation forms. When answering interviews using PEE or the STAR structure, is chef's kiss. So PEE just means point, evidence, explain. So for the point, you make the claim. For evidence, you give examples of what you've done. And for explain, you explain why it shows the skill. And for STAR, we've looked at the STAR structure already in this video. And for coaching roles, obviously you want to talk about safety checks, session structure, inclusion, adaptations, and safeguarding awareness. Lastly, let's look at reflection. Don't overlook the reflection. You're expected to reflect on your role play activity, your performance as either interviewee or interviewer or the observer, communication skills, organization skills, and how the skills gained improve employability. So to get top marks, don't just say, oh, I need to improve confidence. You want to say what happened, why it happened, what the impact was, what you do next time, and how you evidence improvement. So the final output of your reflection should have your original SWOT analysis, so your before SWOT analysis, and then your after SWOT analysis, which happens after the feedback and the interview stage. And also new actions that have been added into your career development action plan with timescales and evidence. Okay, so we are at the end, and this is the final secret. Don't tell anyone who isn't a Super PE Online student. This is the full marks formula to secure distinction level outcomes. So your assignment evidence should show 2 contrasting career pathways researched properly with short-term and long-term prospects and clear job requirements. It should also show a skills audit with SWOT analysis that has real evidence, not just vibes. It should also have a career action plan with milestones, measures, and timescales. There should also be a recruitment pack, which includes advert, job description, person specification, CV, application, cover letter. It should also show interview plus pathway practical. And lastly, a reflection plus your updated SWOT analysis plus your upgraded plan. That's it for Unit 3. See you in the next video.